How far should you hit your golf clubs in winter? I've dug out the ShotScope data to see how far you should hit different clubs in your golf bag during winter. We're going to be looking at the difference between winter and summer distances, and also the distance varying by handicap. So how far does a scratch golfer hit it compared to, say, a 15 or a 25 handicap? Let's go get into it. So let's start by talking about driver, because it's the big club. We all want to know how far it goes, and we all want to hit it as far as possible. And it can be a bit demoralising in winter when suddenly it doesn't go very far. But don't worry, this is not just the case for you. It happens for everyone across all handicap categories. Now, the biggest shock for me was just how consistent that drop off of distance is throughout the handicap. So I thought maybe scratch golfers might not lose quite as much as higher handicaps. And that is the case, but on a much smaller scale than I thought. If we look at scratch golfers, on average in summer, they hit the driver 289 yards. That drops down to 243 yards in winter, which is a significant drop off in distance. ShotScope have data on this for every handicap category up in numbers of 5, so go scratch, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 handicap. And actually, compared to a scratch golfer, a 25 handicapper only loses 5 extra yards in winter, which I definitely thought might be a bigger number, given typically a 25 handicap might not fly it as far, but maybe make up that distance in terms of run out. And obviously the ground's cold, wet and muddy. So if we look at that 25 handicapper, they go from carrying it 229 yards with driver in summer to hitting it 178 yards with driver in winter, which is obviously quite a significant difference. And if we look at the distance of some long par threes, you're basically in a situation where you're probably going to have to hit driver to reach some of those longer holes. If we drop down to mid-handicapper range, so near the average club handicap, the average club handicap is 18, so here we would use the data for a 15 handicapper. They go from hitting it 253 yards in summer to just 207 yards. So across all handicap categories, we're losing between 39 up to 51 yards in winter. That is a serious amount of distance. While you're here, I'd really appreciate if you could hit that subscribe button. This is a brand new channel. I'm really trying to grow my audience so I can bring great videos back to you guys and get more reach and more opportunities to bring new videos to the channel. So please hit that subscribe button if you can. While you're there, you might as well hit the like button and drop a comment about what new videos you'd like to see. Right, back to the video. So if you're wondering where we're getting this data from, this all comes from ShotScope. They have numerous GPS devices that also come with shot tracking. So you put these little tags in your clubs and then it picks up all your shots as you go around the golf course. This means over time it can give you averages of how far you hit different golf clubs in your bag. And then it also means they have millions of shots in their database that show all different golfers of different handicaps and how far they hit it on average. So today I'm using something called the P average. You can either get the just normal average out of the ShotScope app, or you can get the P average, and this is the performance average, so it takes out any outlier shots. So say you've kind of chipped out of the trees or hit a shank and it's a shot that's like doesn't really reflect how far you've hit the golf ball, or even if you've had an anomaly where you've hit the golf ball really far, maybe your drive's pitched on a cart path and run out miles, it will take the kind of extremes from each end, take them out, and then give you a more accurate performance average. So that's the number we're using here today for all the different handicap categories. So what happens in terms of distance when we drop down to a 7-iron? Well, here, luckily, the gap gets a little bit smaller than what we saw with driver. For a scratch golfer, they actually carry a 7-iron 181 yards in summer. That drops down to 156 in winter, but it does mean it's a 25-yard difference instead of that 45-yard gap that we saw with driver, which is a pretty significant saving, but it is still quite a lot. That's 2.5 clubs more in terms of distance. So if there's a par 3 where you normally hit 7-iron, you're looking at hitting 5 or maybe even 4-iron into the green. And I think at this point, that's where expectation management comes in, because you've got to look at that par 3 and suddenly realise it's 2-3 clubs longer, and that you're probably not going to be quite as accurate, you're not going to hit it on the green as much. And that's just because although you're still the same distance, so it's actually playing much longer. This distance drop off continues through the handicap. So for a 15 handicap, they go from 169 yards in summer to 141 in winter. Then for a 25 handicap, we're going from 160 yards to 128 yards. So that's quite significant. So what I'd like to do now is just talk you through this par 3, what the distance is, and how I would go about picking the right club in winter, and just how much yardage I'm adding to make up for the conditions. So we've got 156 yards to the pin. I am using my ShotScope laser here, which has slope in it, and it's telling me it's playing 3 yards downhill. So that's making it to 153. Now, we're into the wind. It's only slight. I'm thinking like half to 1 club, so I'm going to add 7 yards to that. So already I'm at 160. Then we've got to think about that drop off in distance. So for 160, me, it's between a 7 and a 6. So actually I'm probably just going to jump straight up to a 5-iron, which is like 175 club for me. I think from that initial 155, that should be about right. Here, this is a back pin position, so I don't really want to go long, and I know I've got loads of room short of that pin, so I think adding that 20 yards is going to work out on this hole. If it was kind of the other way around and it was maybe uphill or it was a front pin, I'd definitely want to go there. I'd definitely be adding another 5 to 10 yards just to make sure I'm safe. Also for me, I know a lot of the time I carry the ball most of the way. I don't get loads of runs, so I'm not kind of making up for the ball expecting to run along the ground. If you're someone who maybe hits a bit lower, relies on a lot of run out, you're going to have to add a lot more here. Look, that's pretty much perfectly pin high. Goes to show you, you actually should listen to the stars. Woohoo! It's just all down to shot scope. So why does the golf ball go so much shorter in winter? Now there's a few different reasons for this. First up is cold air is much denser than warmer air, so the ball just doesn't travel through it as well. For every 10-degree drop in temperature in Celsius, you're going to lose about 2 to 3 yards because of the change in air density. Now, colder golf balls also don't travel as far, and there's actually an optimal temperature for your golf balls, which I didn't realise, and that's between 20 and 30 degrees Celsius, which is 68 to 86 in Fahrenheit. Now, if we drop down to 5 degrees Celsius, which is 49 degrees in Fahrenheit, you could be losing 5 to 10 yards of ball speed just from having a colder golf ball. So make sure you keep it in your pocket between holes. And don't keep your golf clubs in your car boot, because those golf balls are going to get really cold and you're going to lose even more distance. Now those are some of the more techie ones. Obviously, if we've got more clothes on in winter, we're going to swing it slower, our club head speed is going to be down, so then we're not going to hit it as far. And also, the ground is cold and wet, it's muddy, we're not getting any run out. So this is why we're seeing such a huge drop off in those total distances out on the golf course. Now, where I think some of these numbers get really interesting is when you combine different clubs to see what your maximum distance is in winter. So if you went out and hit a driver and a 3-wood, how far does that get you down the golf course, and how near to different holes can you get? How many par 4s you're going to be able to reach into? How many par 5s you're going to be able to reach into? Because that's a real big indicator of how well you're going to be able to score. If we can't get up to par 4s in 2, we're definitely making bogey most of the time, and we're not going to take the opportunities to make birdies on par 5s if we can't reach or get pretty close. So we already know a scratch golfer hits the driver 243 yards in winter. Now when we add a 3-wood to this, which carries 226 yards, we get a total of 469 yards. So obviously that's going to mean they can reach the mass majority of holes out on the golf course, which kind of shows you why they've still got that low handicap. Now if we move to the complete opposite extreme of a 25 handicapper, their driver distance is 178 and their 3-wood distance is 163. This only gives them 341 yards of potential carry distance at their max 2 shots. Unless obviously we're going to go driver off the deck, but I'm not sure they would get that much further than the 3-wood. We're at Hickleton Golf Club today, and actually if you came and played here with those distances, you'd only be able to reach 2 of the par 4s out on the golf course. So obviously that's making scoring a lot harder for you. Now, compared to summer months, a 25 handicap is losing 104 yards in the combined driver and 3-wood distance. If we move down to a scratch golfer, that's a little bit lower, but it's still 88 yards. So we can see a significant distance loss, as we saw with just the driver. That does mean, as well as losing 104 yards compared to what a 25 handicap's used to, they're losing 128 yards compared to a scratch golfer. So they're actually losing a bigger margin against that group. We see a pretty consistent drop off in terms of distance from a scratch handicap up to a 25 handicap. It varies, but I'll put a graph up with all the numbers so you can have a look here. But don't worry, all is not lost. In a little bit, we're going to go into how you can add more distance and what you can be doing in winter to get those carry distances up. So what can we do to hit it further in winter? Well, there's a few things you can do to actually just tweak your equipment first and foremost, which might help you out a little bit. The first one would be moving to a lower compression or a distance golf ball. We know there are lots of golf balls out on the market that are specifically designed to help you hit it further. And in winter, we're not really going to get the benefits of that urethane soft cover because it's so wet and muddy. We're just not going to spin the golf ball that much. And also the ball's going to land and stop on the greens pretty quickly because it's soft. So maybe we can move to a cheaper golf ball which will save us money, and also one that's specifically designed to go further that will help us get an extra few yards. A few seasons ago I actually switched into the Titleist True Feel for winter, and I could definitely notice that it went half a club to a club further for me through the bag, which really helped in terms of reducing that distance drop off. Another thing you can do is actually loft up your driver or your woods. Now for a lot of us, when we get custom fit, the fitter is looking for a good balance between carry distance and total distance. So it might be that your club's been built to fly a certain distance but then get maximum run out. In winter, we're not going to get that run out, so we might as well loft the driver up, get maximum height, maximum carry distance and flight time, and get a little bit more yardage out of our club that we're going to lose in terms of the run out through the wet fairways. On a similar theme, it's really worth testing teeing your ball up at different heights. For a lot of people, simply just teeing the ball higher is going to allow us to hit up on it, give more of an upwards angle of attack, and again, that's going to get us to hit it higher and further. Now, if you wanted to go really hardcore, you could change what shaft you've got in your club. I've gone for a shaft that's lighter, so in theory it should help me swing it a little bit quicker, or maybe not lose swing speed once I put loads of layers on. But I've also gone for something that specifically launches the ball higher and adds spin, which is definitely going to help in those winter months. Now, obviously everyone doesn't necessarily have that opportunity, but it is something worth looking into if you do. Now, obviously there are limits to what we can do with our equipment to make the golf ball go further. But there's also things we can do with ourselves to help the golf ball go further. And I think a lot of people think they kind of have to Bryson and bulk up to hit the ball further, but that's not necessarily true. For lots of us, we're desk workers, we're sitting down all day, we're just getting kind of stiffer and tighter muscles as the years and the weeks progress. So actually just doing like 5 to 10 minutes of mobility every other day would really help us to get a bigger shoulder turn, more hip turn, and all of that's going to get more range of motion and allow us to hit the golf ball further. If you're interested in a specific golf mobility routine, let me know in the comments and I can drop a video on that soon. Now obviously we can lift weights, and getting stronger is really going to help how far we hit the golf ball, but actually golf is a power sport. We're hitting the ball in just a few seconds, which means most of our kind of speed and distance is coming from power rather than just pure strength. So going in the gym and doing things that work our fast twitch fibers is going to be really effective. So that can be jumping, be it onto a box or just simple squat jumps off the ground. You can also do lots of things jumping on and off different boxes that are lower heights. We do these single leg or double leg depending on what you want to work on or how stable you are. Another great thing is just moving weights quickly in the gym. So can we do things with landmines that are moving weights quickly? Maybe trap bar jumps. And all these things don't require a really heavy weight, but they're going to get you a lot more powerful, which is going to really help with your club head speed. Now the last thing we can do is obviously use some golf specific equipment in terms of like your super speed sticks or your stack system, and these are sticks that are specifically designed for you to use the weighted light golf clubs, lighter or heavier, and they allow you to just work through swinging something faster and getting used to adding that extra speed. It's called over speed training. It's kind of teaching your body that it's okay to move a bit faster than it currently does. Now obviously we need to think about when we're doing this, we're not going to hit perfect shots at first if we're not used to that speed, so allow yourself to go to the range and practice this and hit some bad shots with driver, but just purely work on speed and then dial that back in and see what you can bring to the golf course. I hope these tips and these distances and stats have been really insightful. Let me know if there's anything else you want to know, and also let me know if there's any other videos you want to see soon.